So it is Monday, January 13th. It's just after noon right now, and I'm working from home today because I wasn't feeling very well this morning. The roads are still not really that great. I ended up seeing yesterday that they were still really bad when we were in town, and I didn't feel comfortable enough really driving to work this morning. So I started work at about 10 a.m. because, like I said, I wasn't feeling well, so I decided to sleep in a little bit and try to make myself feel better. I do plan on working until around 6 or so, and I may have to end up actually staying over this week. I don't really know. It depends on how much exactly I get done, I feel like, because if I feel like I can work 8 hours today, I will. If I do end up working over this week, it might only be for like an hour or so the rest of this week. Today I am going to hopefully be getting through The Wicked Will Rise by Danielle Paige. This is the second book in the Dorothy Must Die series. I did finish my audiobook for Pieces of Her, and I inputted the points for the HouseCupathon with that, and I've started my next audiobook, which is Texas Ranger by James Patterson and somebody else. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that's my audiobook that I'm working through right now, and I should honestly be able to get through it today because it's only like 6 hours or so. Like, it's a pretty small audiobook, so if I listen to it while I'm working, I should be able to get through it no problem. And then tonight I probably will crank through the entirety of The Wicked Will Rise because this is only like less than 300 pages, so I should be able to like fly through this really quickly and not have any issues. And then tomorrow I think I'll be able to start up Rebels and Traitors by Lindsey. That is kind of the plan for today. I gotta get back to work though, so I can sit and listen to more of my audiobook and continue working and stuff like that. Probably about 1 o'clock or so though, I'm gonna take my lunch and sit and probably read The Wicked Will Rise for a little bit and just kind of sit and enjoy my break. So it's about 2:30, almost 2:45 I think in the afternoon now, and I'm taking a little bit of a break from work. My head's just starting to hurt, so since I'm able to work from home today, I'm just taking a little bit of a break. I might come back later on tonight and do some more work, but I'm just stopping for right now because I'm not feeling the best still. I haven't really done any reading as of yet other than listening to almost half of Texas Ranger by James Patterson and the other author that he worked on the story with, and I really like it so far. It's very interesting. It's focusing on a type of cop. He's known as what's called a Texas Ranger. They're kind of like not exactly border patrol cops, but they do deal with things like immigrants that have been, kidnapped by people who have helped them across the border and are holding them ransom. But mostly they deal with like convicted felons that are kind of like on the lam and everything. And maybe they just got out of jail and they done something bad again. So they're kind of the ones going after them and picking them up and stuff like that to take them back to jail. So this main character, he is a Texas Ranger, and after he essentially takes down somebody that was harboring a lot of immigrants, like he would basically had them locked up in a warehouse. After he deals with that, he gets a call from his ex-wife, who he's very friendly with, still very close with her, and she tells him that she thinks she's being stalked or she's being targeted by somebody, she doesn't know who. And so this character goes out to go help her, but unfortunately when he gets there, she's dead. And no one really knows exactly who did it. They know it's not him because he was a long ways away from her and would have had no ability to actually do anything to her. The main character thinks that it was his ex-wife's ex-boyfriend who may have done it because he's kind of got a bit of a shady past and could be a little violent at times, but no one really knows exactly what's going on. And so it, like many other cop stories where it's involved of somebody that they know and care about is involved in like the killing, or like they're the victim, they end up basically going against what the cops tell them and try to solve the case on their own. So that's pretty much what this is about. There hasn't really been a whole lot divulged as of yet. What's interesting is that this story is a little different than a lot of those other ones because most of the time the character that is trying to solve the case or whatever immediately jumps into it and tries to be on the sly about it. And this character's not so much doing that. He's trying to get back to a normal life, but he's not giving up on the fact that he thinks that the ex-boyfriend was the one that killed his ex-wife. So it's like he's very adamant about going after this guy, but he's not exactly working on anything in particular, but he's trying to get involved with it, but he's also trying to get back to, you know, having a normal life despite what's going on. So it's interesting. It's a very different take on that, and I kind of like it because it is so very different, and I think is much more related to what I think would actually happen, because I feel like a lot of people think that these kinds of cops, when someone they know is involved in the murder, like they're the victim, like they automatically are gonna get like super involved with it, but none of the other cops are gonna know, and it's gonna be completely silent. That's not always exactly realistic in a lot of ways. Like you can be really crafty about how you get your information and stuff like that, but it's nice to see that this one kind of plays more on what I think to be the more realistic approach, which is that this guy is trying to get back to having a normal life, but he's also not giving up in the fact that he's trying to help push along the investigation as best he can, but not trying to be super involved with it either, because he knows he can get in a lot of trouble for it. And I made my lunch, I ate that, and then now I'm kind of just starting to feel kind of crappy. I think I might try to go lay down for a little bit because I'm not feeling too well. And yeah, so I haven't really picked up The Wicked Will Rise yet. I probably won't until this evening. I do plan on, like I said, coming back to work for a little bit longer, maybe tonight, probably for like a couple hours or so, and then I can just spread out the rest of this week, maybe staying over like half an hour over the course of the week, just to make up for the time that I didn't work today. Hey guys, so it is currently Wednesday evening. If you're hearing like any clanging in the background, Robert is making dinner now, so he's cutting very loudly some vegetables. But sad time, my lights up there went out on my my wall. That made me very sad this morning. I came in to see why it was so dark in the office this morning, and it turns out my one of the light bulbs in my string died. So when one light goes out, they all go out, basically. So yeah, I wanted to update you guys real quick because I haven't really had a chance to the last couple days. Monday I finished Pieces of Her and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I really loved it. It was very, very intriguing, and the overall ending of the story I think has definitely surprised me because I didn't expect it to go the way that it did, and I was greatly surprised with how much I just really enjoyed learning about Laura and Andrea and all these different things, and learning about Laura's past. So I really enjoyed that. I listened to the entirety of Texas Ranger by James Patterson and Andrew Bourelle. That I gave, I think, a 5 out of 5 stars to that one too, because it was a very quick read, but it was very enjoyable. Like, it was one of those stories where I really didn't want to put it down. I did finish The Wicked Will Rise on Tuesday, which I ended up completing for my September random TBR, and I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars as well, because my god, was this book amazing. I seriously had a hard time keeping myself away from the story because I was really engaged the entire time. I remember reading the first book, Dorothy Must Die, in this series about a year and a half ago, and I really liked it, but looking back on it, I don't think I liked it as much as I did when I first read it, because there was a lot of things I didn't remember, and it wasn't really memorable in a lot of ways. But The Wicked Will Rise has really brought me back around to the series, because I felt like the second book really just solidified a lot of interesting plot points that I did not expect to happen, because as you may know, if you've heard about this series, it's basically a continuation of the story of The Wizard of Oz. So this is basically all new territory that Danielle Paige has decided to delve into. And my god, it is absolutely amazing. Like, the end of this story really had me for a loop, because now I have no idea where the story is going to go because of how the story ended and where the characters ended up. It was just freaking nuts, and I loved every second of it. So I really, really enjoyed it. There was not nearly as much romantic involvement, I think, in this story as there was in the first one. I was totally okay with that, because the romantic interest didn't even show up until probably like the last 70 pages of the book. So it was totally fine with me, because I was really focused on understanding Amy, the main character, and seeing her progress, because I feel like the story focuses more on her own inner demons and how they are starting to take over her, and she's starting to become wicked, and that can lead to a lot of good things and some very, very bad things. So it's going to be interesting to see how she plays out the rest of the series. I'm very, very intrigued, and I kind of want to pick up Yellow Brick War way sooner, because it's on my TBR, but I want to pick it up so soon, because
I'm very interested to see how this story continues. I did also listen to the entirety of Hollow City by Ransom Riggs. This is the second book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. Holy crap, I forgot how much I loved this book and this series. I read Miss Peregrine's about the time I first started my channel. Like, it was within one of the first 15 books I reviewed on my channel, and to be completely honest, I feel like I forgot a lot of what had happened since then, because it's been about almost 3 years, I think, since I've read the book, and I remembered enough of it to feel comfortable going into the second one, but I was greatly surprised by how much love I had for this book by the end of it when I finished the audiobook today at work. I flew through this, and this was one of those audiobooks that I feel like I couldn't put down again, because I was so invested with this story, and the whole idea of Hollow City is that the whole team of the Peregrine children have to essentially try to save Miss Peregrine because something happens to her at the very end of the first book, and they're basically running away from the place that they had been in the 1940s, and essentially they're trying to find a way to save her because she's been damaged and she's hurt, and they're trying to figure out how to help her out. And so that's the entirety of the story, is them trying to find out how to help her. And I felt so attached to these characters so quickly again. Like, my heart was hurting so much because they come across so many different things over the course of their trying to help Miss Peregrine, and it's one of those stories where, like, you don't think that you're gonna get attached to these characters so very easily. And then on top of that, you're seeing Jacob basically dealing with his own demons that he has and trying to understand what his place in all of this is, if he's even supposed to be here. And it just was very, very heart-wrenching, a lot of it. And by the end of it, I was almost in tears because I was so scared for what was going to happen. But I feel like the end of Hollow City really, really exemplifies how loved the story is, because it was such a very easy transition to, I think, the third book, and it just made it more apparent that there was some very high stakes involved in the story. And I feel like it just really exemplified how much I think Ransom Riggs has put into this story, because he's been able to really make you love these characters so much that you just want to pick up the next book as soon as possible so that you can see where your precious babies are going to end up. So that's all I have to really catch you guys up on right now, because I haven't even touched Rebels and Traitors yet today. I took it with me to work, and I don't know why, because when I was at work, I was busy, and then when I wasn't busy, I was listening to Hollow City, trying to finish it, so I didn't really have any time to sit and read Rebels and Traitors at all while I was at work today. So I'm gonna sit and read some of it now, though, because now I have some time, and Robert and I are just gonna kind of hang out and sit and just, you know, have a nice relaxing evening.
Hey guys, so it is Friday night now. It's, I think, going on like maybe 6:30 almost. And yeah, as you can see, I just got out of the shower, and I'm gonna do a facial, but I figured I'd pop in to talk to you guys a little bit about what's happened over the last couple days. So I've really only gotten through the first quarter or so of A Shadow Bright and Burning by Jessica Cluess, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's coming off of as a story a lot different than I thought it was going to be. Like, I may have only heard the synopsis like maybe once, and it didn't really, I think, explain everything that's going on in the story, but I'm really enjoying it so far. So this is based in kind of an alternate Victorian England time, where essentially people in this world, in like the Victorian era that there is at this current moment, there are people who have magical abilities, and they are called sorcerers. And they basically can use one of the elements, whether it's fire, earth, air, or water. And then there are what are called the ancients, which were the people that basically have had these powers, or like variants of these powers, and they're kind of evil. Like, they're kind of the ones mostly destroying the world, and the sorcerers are kind of the people that keep them in line for the most part, or try to help them. And there's this big war going on between the sorcerers and the ancients at this point in time, because years before, there was a woman named Mary Willoughby who essentially was a fire user, but they considered her more of a witch because she essentially opened up this portal with somebody else, and it brought in all these ancients, and they've basically been wreaking havoc on the world. And so there's been this big war because of that. And the main character
in the story. Her name is Henrietta. She is also a type of sorcerer, but she doesn't know she's a sorcerer exactly as of yet. But the whole beginning of the story is essentially she has to save her friend Rook, who essentially is the victim of one of the ancients. He's called what's called an unclean. Essentially, it's a person who was touched by one of the ancients, was attacked by them, was hurt by them, and they have some kind of remnants of that attack, and it really is painful for a lot of them. Her friend Rook was attacked by this guy named Kazoroth, who was basically like an ancient of shadows and fog, like kind of is like one of the darker guys. And when he's attacked, she protects him, and one of the sorcerers that is very well known in this world sees her use her power and essentially tells her that she is supposedly this chosen one character. She's kind of this prophetic individual who is supposed to help bring down the ancients in this world. There was a prophecy written years before that essentially told of her coming, and that she was going to be the key to bringing down the ancients, supposedly. There's not really a clear idea as to who it's supposed to be and how they're supposed to do it, but supposedly they're supposed to bring down the ancients. And so Henrietta essentially gets whisked off to London, and she is put in the school with a bunch of other male sorcerers, and she's the only female in the last 400 years. And she's basically going to have to learn how to use her powers. Now, there's no telling as to where that's going to lead, if she's going to end up fighting somebody at the end of this novel, or if it's just going to be more so her learning how to use her power and figuring out what exactly is going on with it. There may be this weird love triangle square kind of thing going on. There's possibly 3 love interests, I think, in this story, which is very interesting. That's not something that is very typical with any especially young adult novel, and I'm interested to see how that goes. Okay, so now I'm going to actually get to my facial instead of just standing here for the next like 10 minutes or so. But first of all, what I usually do is, especially right now, my skin is really kind of dry and I haven't really done anything with it. I haven't honestly washed my face in probably like a couple weeks because I've been very tired and lazy. So especially if I'm starting off on a blank slate, I like to use a scrub first. I pretty much use the Clean and Clear line stuff because I feel like this works really well for me and it doesn't break me out or anything, because I used to have very sensitive skin when I was younger, but as I've gotten older, it's not become as sensitive, and so the Clean and Clear stuff actually works really well for me and does what it needs to. It actually helps clear up my skin quite a bit when I actually keep up with taking care of my skin, if that makes sense. So I'm going to use this real quick and get started on the facial. So I just wet my face a little bit and then take some of this, probably about that much, not really a whole lot, and you just pretty much put it all over your face. So something else that I've been working on, yesterday I listened to the entirety of The Rumor by Elin Hilderbrand. I'm actually getting really into Elin Hilderbrand's writing. This is now the 2nd book I think I've listened to her by, and it's really, really good. I really like her writing. I love that most of her books are standalones, but they all take place in the same area. I'm pretty certain, at least the 2 books I have read by her, both took place in the same area, which is like the Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard area in like the East Coast. And The Rumor was really good. I liked it a lot because I think it touched on something that is really prevalent, especially in close-knit communities, which is the idea that essentially if there is any kind of gossip that's involved in a town about different people, it spreads like wildfire, and it really can be detrimental to a lot of people, especially the people that are involved in the rumor. And that's pretty much the entirety of what this story is there's a rumor that starts up about this one woman who everyone thinks is having an affair with her best friend's husband, and it kind of just spirals from there. It was honestly very entertaining and I had a really good time listening to it, but I felt like there were some things that could have been left out. For instance, there was a perspective from the husband character that one of the characters was supposedly having an affair with, and there was a whole storyline with him that I think makes sense in the end, but while I was reading it, it didn't seem like it had much of a purpose. Like after I finished reading it and sat on it for about a day or so, I realized that the perspective itself kind of was important because it led to a lot about his character and how what his values and stuff are, but during the time I was reading it, I didn't see the point of his perspective because I just felt it was really kind of not needed. It was a extraneous plot that didn't really see much of the light of day until really the very end of the story. So I didn't see a point to him, but looking back on it now after a couple of days, I kind of see where Elin Hilderbrand was trying to use this character. I just don't think it necessarily worked very well as a full perspective, if that makes sense. So usually what I do afterwards is after I wash my face off of the scrub, I will wet it again and use this hydrating cleanser. It's really nice, especially for like this time of year when my skin gets kind of dry and it really flaky and stuff. This keeps me very hydrated. A lot of the stuff I use pretty much is for hydration because as I've gotten older, my skin has gone from being really oily to really dry a lot of times. So then normally what I do after I use a cleanser is I will use like a mask of some sort, but I don't honestly feel like using a mask. I was going to, but then I decided to film this and now I kind of don't really want to sit for 10 minutes and have to wait for the mask to dry, and I'm just not about it right now. So what I'm going to do instead is go to the next step that I usually do, which is using a toner, and I use this clarifying one, this deep cleaning astringent. You have to be very careful, I think, with especially toners and astringent things, because especially if you have dry skin already, it is going to make your skin really dry. But what I like about it is that it helps with preventing pimples because of the salicylic acid that's in it. I feel like it helps to dry out the breakouts I do have without drying out completely the rest of my skin. And I always use a moisturizer after I use this, so it doesn't keep my skin from becoming a desert. It actually helps to use the moisturizer afterward so the salicylic acid can do its work, but then the rest of my skin doesn't suffer. So I just use like a little cotton ball and I put some on there and I just quickly run it over my face. I would not recommend using this though when you, like if you're a picker like me, a lot of times you're gonna like pick yourself and then use a toner like this and it's gonna burn like the dickens. It doesn't hurt too bad, but I would not recommend it. So then, like I said, after I use the toner, I let my skin kind of soak that in a little bit. It doesn't take very long, but then I use the Clean and Clear Dual Action Moisturizer. It's a very light moisturizer. You really only need one pump in my case to get your whole face, and it's very moisturizing. I find that it actually does wonders for me, especially the next day that after I've done a facial. I don't know what it is, but for some reason this stuff, like even though I don't use a lot of it, it goes a long way for me, and I think that's because I use so many hydrating things as it is that it kind of just adds to it, but gives like a nice protective barrier to keep everything sealed in. And it doesn't actually break up my skin to use all these hydrating things. It actually helps it more, I think, like I said, because typically my skin is now a lot more dry a lot of the time. But as far as my plans for tonight, what I plan on doing is I am going to be playing Mario Kart with Robert because we did get a Switch actually on Tuesday night. I don't think I said that at all earlier this week, but we did get a Switch, and so we've been kind of playing Mario Kart together, and me a little bit more on my own. But while I was listening to the rumor yesterday, I played Mario Kart, and tonight we're gonna play it and try to get some stuff unlocked with it since we really like the game and we like playing it together. And I think tonight before I go to bed, I am going to read some more of A Shadow Bright and Burning because I really do like that. I want to get through the majority of it today and then finish it tomorrow because tomorrow's gonna be kind of busy, but like towards the afternoon to like evening portion of the day, I think I should have some time to read and actually finish it and then start Something Strange and Deadly by Susan Dennard, which is another book I'm kind of excited about but know pretty much nothing about. So I'm really happy to read some very new books I feel like I don't know anything going into, because I always like getting surprised by these kinds of books. I like being surprised by what is in them because I don't know anything about them going into it. So
Hi guys, so it's just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon now, and since I was reading A Shadow Bright and Burning earlier, as you guys saw, I've been doing a lot of stuff. I finished the book and absolutely loved it, as you could tell by some of my reactions that I had towards the end of the novel. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved every second of it. From the very beginning, I was hooked because the story was very different than what I had seen of other historical fantasies that I had read over the course of time. The whole thing from beginning to end was completely unexpected. I feel like I didn't know what to expect going through much of the story. I wouldn't say that the story was predictable in any way because I really had no idea what to expect going into this story. So if it was predictable to any other people, then that's fine. But for me, my personal experience, I wasn't predicting anything that was happening. I felt like I was just really surprised at every turn with this book. And I think I was also really surprised with how much I really felt for the main character and how much I really enjoyed the idea of there possibly being 3 love interests in this story as opposed to the traditional 2 that we usually see. It's really weird because you can almost say that one of the kind of guys that is involved in this is not necessarily a love interest, but the way that the story developed and the closer that this character got to this particular male character made it feel like there might be something in the future that develops between the 2 of them. I'm not entirely sure about that, but there was this distinct feeling I had that there was a possibility that there might be something going on with this character later on. And so that's why I thought there were more like 3 love interests in the story as opposed to the 2 that I think were much more set in stone in the story. And I really enjoyed it. I seriously enjoyed everything from it, from learning about the kind of magic that was involved with this story, the war that was going on, the training that this main character, Henrietta, had to go through, and a lot of the things that she was learning about herself and what she's capable of in this story. I feel like this is a story that really exemplifies, a character's growth because she was not only learning of how to do these powers, in using these powers that she's had, that she's known about for her whole life, but also she was learning a lot about her past and where she comes from and how that necessarily affects her in this particular time, because this is set in Victorian England, and in Victorian England especially, there's a lot of stigma against women being involved in a lot of different things, especially in this world, being a sorcerer. There's this prophecy where the sorcerer is supposedly supposed to be female, but there's a lot of people who are against that idea, which is very significant of the time period because women in Victorian England were really starting to come into their own a lot more. They weren't necessarily, running households and doing a lot of things that men normally could do, but they were gaining more control of themselves. They were finding more control of themselves and what they were capable of. It was basically the first inklings of women starting to really showcase who they are and really starting to become more in society than they already were. And this book, I feel like, really showcased a lot of that and how that was starting to affect, the world itself, because the main character, Henrietta, she's obviously a woman, so she's looked down upon more because of the fact that she is a woman, but also because she comes from a lower birth, meaning that she comes from kind of like a lower class standing, and so there's a lot of stigma against her because of that. And so this whole story is based in that idea and that stigma of women being less than, because it shows that despite where she came from, she becomes this really, really powerful character. And I always love seeing stories like that, where it's not necessarily a redemption story, but it's a proving you wrong kind of story. And I love stories like that. It's some of my favorite tropes to see is I can show you that I'm better than you and that I am more than you'll ever expect. And I love it. It's always something that is so gratifying, especially when it's a female character that shows that. So I finished that today probably around like 11 o'clock, 11:30 or so this morning. And then I got through a bunch of other stuff because I had to sit with my friends Adri and Liv, who I host with the HouseCupathon, for a different readathon that we are actually doing in March. So we hadn't really talked much about it. And because it is getting closer and closer to February, we decided to sit down and figure some stuff out about this readathon that we are planning on doing in March, and we decided on a timeline. We decided on what exactly we want the prompts to be for this readathon, and it's going to be very, very lax. I will just say that right now. It's going to be very lax. Like, it's going to be very much a do your own thing kind of readathon within these confines. We're basically going to focus on a type of book, but you will have a list of different ideas that you can use, that you can double up on, that you can use to experience this particular area of reading that most people tend to not focus on as much, we think, in booktube, that definitely deserves its own spotlight. So we're really excited about it, and so we sat and talked for a little bit about that, and I also today have to go through some budgeting stuff because of the wedding and everything. We have to start figuring out what do we need to pay to help with the wedding. What do we need to, stop spending our money on kind of thing. Just trying to really kind of nail some stuff down because like I told you guys before, this year 2020 is not only my wedding, but you know, we're gonna be doing a lot of stuff over this next year. And so Robert and I have to figure out what's going to work best for us to make sure that all these things happen. Anyway, I do plan on, though, getting at least a jump start on Something Strange and Deadly probably this evening, maybe later this afternoon into this evening, which is my January random TBR pick, so I am now fully caught up with everything, which makes me very excited. I've gotten through all of the books I wanted to for my random TBRs, and now I can do my January one. I really do want, though, to film my coffee and ketchup video here very soon. I probably gonna film it today, edit it, and then get it uploaded to schedule out for tomorrow because if you guys are in the HouseCupathon, we did post our riddle challenge on Wednesday, and Monday we are all supposed to, the prefects is supposed to post our videos or pictures on Instagram to have our answers for those riddles. So I do have to get that filmed today at some point. I probably will do it maybe after Robert and I do our budgeting stuff so that I can get it done and out of the way, and then I can just edit it and then get it uploaded and then spend the rest of the day reading. I, though, am going to end this vlog here. Don't forget that if you have not joined the HouseCupathon, you still have time. We still have about 11 days or so left of the readathon that you are totally able to join if you wish. I do want to also say that we do have our live show date picked. We have the 31st picked as our live show date at about 5:30 EST, I believe, and it's going to be a fun time. We're going to have a huge Final Feast quiz where we're going to have questions for the HouseCupathon about the group book, and so you guys can join in to earn a bunch of points for that. So if you guys would still like to join, you are more than able to by clicking the link to our Discord down below. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.